Welcome back to the Titanium Hanger. Happy Saturday, everybody. This is Mike. Today I want to talk to you about Indiana Jones 5, The Dial of Destiny, and why I think it's actually going to be a really good movie. A lot of people are saying that it's not going to be a good movie. They say it's going to be a bad movie. There's a lot of people with negative press, negative ideas, but I'm here to say I think it's going to be pretty good. A lot of the criticism is that it's not going to capture the original trilogy. It's not going to feel like the original trilogy, but I gotta say, you can't go home again. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. And with that, I think they're going to actually pay homage to the original trilogy in a ton of ways. And although I'm going to spend most of the video talking about the movie, I actually am more concerned about the merchandising that's going to come out of this. Will it be good enough to support multiple waves of the toy line in two different scales? I think it will, and talk about this and more coming up. First thing I want to say is that the Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls, which would be Indiana Jones 4, was met with mixed reviews. Now, I enjoyed the movie because I got to see Indiana Jones do more stuff on the screen. But I did feel like it was a giant departure from the original trilogy. Just didn't feel like a continuation. And there's some stuff that they did in there that was fan service, but it sort of went wrong. And a couple of the things that they did were okay, and some were a bit out there. But so many people bash this movie. It's not the greatest movie in the whole world. It was fun. I believe Indiana Jones 5 will be received better than this one. I kind of see this mirroring what J.J. Abrams did with the Star Trek franchise, and a lot of people did not like that. I personally enjoyed it because I kind of like The Next Generation the most, and I felt like this was a complete refresh from the original series, but a lot of the hardcore fans of Star Trek did not like this. I thought it was okay, but I'm not a hardcore Star Trek fan, so for me, as sort of a casual watcher of this, I sort of enjoyed it, but that's what really sort of makes a hit, right? That the casual people are involved, not just the hardcore. Obviously, you want to satisfy both the hardcore fan community, and you want to give something fun to the casual watcher, the casual moviegoer. And so with that, they do a lot of fan service in a way, bringing back old characters. I think bringing Sallah back's a good idea. Not exactly sure what his role is in this or what's going to go on, but it will give you some of those feels, and it'll be a nice homage to the original trilogy, instead of trying to say it's a reboot of the original trilogy or just holding on to that one too much. We're going to see a lot of stuff like dead corpses. Obviously, we saw that in the original trilogy, right? Indy teaching class, again, in his 80s. Is he pushing 80? Teaching classes. So this is one of those things that we had in the original trilogy that we're going back to, and they continue this sort of storyline narrative. What I really believe is that he's gone on with his life, and he's put the archaeology and the field days behind him, and now they're going to bring it back. We get a big boulder. I mean, that's fan service right there, right? You can't have Indiana Jones without his fedora hat, his whip, and a big boulder. Got a fun train sequence that looks like we're going to have. Maybe it won't be so much fun, but it's still going to be some action. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. We got a rickety bridge to walk across. So many things in this most recent trailer that show you what's going to happen, or at least some homage to what's going to happen. So if all the good parts of the movie are shown in the trailer, that means it's a bad movie. So if these are all the good parts, then it would be a bad movie, but I don't believe that. Indy evidently gets captured, and there's Nazis in this one. Again. Of course, he's got some whip action going on. There's a nice little scene of him doing some whip action and bringing a whip to a gunfight. But the action is kind of where it is. So there's action, there's comedy, and there's some archaeology all going on in this movie that we have had in all these other movies. I think it's going to be a fun romp. Maybe people are going to dissect it and pick it apart, but I think going to see this is definitely going to be worthwhile, and it's going to be fun. There's always some sort of a chase scene. It's almost like you follow a formula that works, and it's some sort of a chase scene. But see, one of the things that I want to point out is when they rebooted Star Wars, they copied the first Star Wars movie and just put in some new characters and actors a little bit to change it. With this, I kind of don't see that happening. I actually don't feel like this is any of the other movies remade. This is a whole new movie on its own that just pays homage to the original trilogy. all these action sequences are fun, but they feel familiar, as George Lucas says. Everything does rhyme, right? There's this scene that looks like it's set up in a shady, seedy type of environment, meeting with some shady people for some shady things, like we saw in one of the other movies. So this is another homage that's being paid, and I actually think that this is going to pay off. This is going to kind of give you some of the feels of the original trilogy. Hopefully the plot and the story and all that sort of makes sense, and it's not just aliens. I think it's more real world. It's more tactile. From what I've read about the plot, and I don't want to reveal too much about the plot, the only thing I will is the ending that people complain about, the possible ending, but I don't think that's bad either. The next point I want to talk about is how the original trilogy had a much younger Harrison Ford, which was a bit more active, but it was different because he was younger. As an older Indiana Jones, you would expect him to act a little differently. He's not going to act the exact same as he did when he was in his late 20s, early 30s, early 40s, that time frame. So with that, I would kind of expect that an older Indiana Jones would act a little bit different, and the movie should make sense in that way. With him a little bit older and a little bit more mature, I guess he says it's his goddaughter. I'm not going into too many of the points in this, but the plot points, because there's a lot of speculation about the plot and speculation about the ending. So if you want to say spoiler, speculation about the ending, they're saying they're going to be passing the hat and the whip to this young lady right here, I guess. Now, that's the rumor that's out there, the spoiler that's out there. This will be Indiana Jones, the last Indiana Jones movie with Harrison Ford in it. So this is going to be his swan song, his goodbye, and I think he said that in the Crystal Skull movie, but I do believe it this go around. I mean, just he's aging, and this kind of movie, it's pretty physically demanding. I don't think that he's going to be wanting to do this at 85 or 90, so I could see this being his last one. Passing the whole franchise off to someone else, I don't think that Indiana Jones is anyone else. With the young Indiana Jones series, people love that, but I wasn't interested in it because all I cared about was Harrison Ford, and when that came out, I was like, it's okay, but I like Harrison Ford. I'd rather watch more of him doing Indiana Jones, not them, so not the younger guy. So anyway, with this is going to be the end for Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones. Do you want them to pass the torch? Because that's what the problem is with a lot of the fans. So getting into the merchandising aspect of this and the toys and all that kind of stuff, there's so much that they could actually make. Now, this is just a small bit of what they made for Kenner that I have in my collection, but I also want to say they could make all of these figures and characters that weren't made the first go around in Kenner. They could go so deep. They can go much, much deeper like they did in 2008. The 2008 toy line was a very good toy line. The problem was, all I saw on shelves were the Crystal Skull figures. And a lot of people said that movie bombed, but it didn't resonate enough with kids for them to want to buy it, obviously. And adult collectors just didn't care. So with that, Hasbro already understands that the vast majority of people buying the toys are going to want the original trilogy figures. And of course, we're going to get some new figures from the new movie, and all that's going to happen too, eventually. But I think they've got a really good plan to dial out a really nice shelf. Imagine having all of these figures and all these characters in retro style, minus the Mutt Lange. There's a lot of stuff going on with the 6-inch or 1/12 scale. Let's just be honest, it's the flavor of the month kind of thing going on right here, but it's been going on a decade now, or more in the 6-inch scale figures. But the 6-inch scale figures are going to be made, and they look pretty good. This is the first time we're getting them done by Hasbro. There was some Disney ones that I will be kind of doing some comparisons on in my videos, but I think that this resonates with the current collecting market right now that likes the 6-inch stuff. But I have seen so many of the Indiana Jones figure, the retro 3.75-inch figure, selling out at an astonishing $15 a figure. So they can charge $15 a figure for Indiana Jones figures because I guess people aren't really happy with spending $1,000 a figure buying the original vintage ones. This new concept they have with the 6-inch scale, the build a figure wave. Well, it's a build an item wave. Build an arc for the first wave, which sounds kind of cool, but it's almost too cliche with the first wave of figures, but they're hitting right at the core of what Kenner put out back in the day. So this is a lineup that you can put a Kenner collection, aside from, of course, Marion in a more traditional outfit than her dress, but this does feel a lot like Kenner right here in the 6-inch scale. But their bread and butter, like I've said a couple of times already in this video, their bread and butter is the 3.75-inch figures. So dialing it out with figures, vehicles, and accessories like horses and all that kind of stuff is definitely something I'd like to see going forward. If the movie is popular enough, then they could continue this. But the thing is, I think they've already doubled down on it, because generally it takes 2 to 3 years to prepare to put a toy line at retail. So they've already got 2 years at least planned out and ready to go. And I think there's going to be multiple waves that we see, whether they make it or not, which is going to be good for the collector, and that's good for me and good for you. I have a lot of memories of Indiana Jones from when I was younger. It's one of those things that I didn't think it would resonate with kids as well as it did. Well, evidently back in the day it did not, but this is going to bring a lot of people to the theaters, in my opinion. This is a big franchise, and it's going to go out with a bang, and it's going to be exciting, and it's going to give you a lot of those retro feels. It's going to feel like the original trilogy in a way, but it's not going to bring you all the way home. You can't go home again, and with that, all of these homages, they are going to pay to the original trilogy with giving us a new story, and it's not going to be too outlandish. It's going to feel like it's very real world, very tactile, and somewhat semi-relevant to 1969. But I'm curious what you think from the trailers they put out, from the information that we have. Are you excited for Indiana Jones 5? Are you thinking it's going to be another Crystal Skull bomb? Do you think it's going to be a fun movie you see multiple times? Or are you going to go see it no matter what? And are you going to plan to enjoy it? Are you going to go in with low expectations and maybe come out pleasantly surprised? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Teddy Hanger out.
Get back!